thank you folks so much. Let me not take so much of your time, and let's get to issue five. It's a pleasure having everyone here.
Excellent, excellent. All right, folks. I want to thank our President and CEO for those kind words. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this critical ICE and immigration enforcement question and answer. I'm calling it a town hall meeting. It's really a very cozy, safe environment that we want to bring together. I am Shufai Ngamansa America. I am also the Executive Vice President of BFU-USA, the organization that is behind organizing today's event. I will be your host for today's session. And today is really, really special because we are broadcasting live. We are having people here in this environment to address a topic of vital importance, right? Navigating the complexities of immigration enforcement during these challenging times. Our goal today is simple, but yet profound, right? To provide you with the resources and insights that you need to protect yourself, your families, and your neighbors. We are honored to be joined by a distinguished panel of experts, like our president was just saying here, who are at the front line of this issue here in Minnesota. Rep. Dave Pinto is a good friend. We worship together at St. Peter Clever. He is a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives, and he brings a deep wealth of legislative perspective on how our state laws, impact our community. We are also joined here by a sister friend and everything. Pam is household name here to us, not just in Minnesota, but across our entire organization. She is an immigration legal expert who will be providing us with direct legal guidance on clarifying issues of fundamental rights and all of that. And I'm super excited to meet Manny here for the first time. And since Dave mentioned you, Manny, I have been reading a lot about you. And I am like, why have I not known you before today? So I am super excited about the work you've been doing, right? You have deep expertise in community work and community building and, and truly the community response to ICE in Minnesota here, helping us to understand how we can stand together effectively. That cannot be overemphasized, and it's there are no words to thank you for everything that you are doing. So this session again is organized by BFU-USA on our guiding principle of Likibomi. Likibomi is in our language, which is you are your brother's keeper, and this is another version of Ubuntu, right? So we are encouraging everyone to stay engaged, take notes, submit your questions via the chat as we move through today's agenda. So let's begin by looking at the current landscape of Minnesota. And I'll be starting with Dave. Dave, over the past several weeks, Minnesota has been the epicenter of aggressive ICE and immigration enforcement. But we are by no means the only state that is undergoing this unprecedented level of removal actions. So what can you say to immigrants, and in this case, Cameroonian immigrants and BFU-USA members who today feel besieged and are scared for their lives?
Shufai, it's an honor to be with you, and BFU-USA, thank you so much for hosting this and putting this together, and to be joined by Pam and Manny as well. So I just to say, I represent the southwest part of St. Paul in the Minnesota House of Representatives. I know we're joined by people from outside of my state as well, but just to let you know that. And so I serve in that role. I'm also serve outside the legislature as a prosecutor of all things in the eastern part of the Twin Cities. And so the rule of law is extremely important to me. Unfortunately, we saw in our state of Minnesota these last couple months some really aggressive and frankly lawless actions by the federal government. The first thing that I want Cameroonians to know, both in Minnesota and around the country, is that you have so many neighbors and friends standing with you and with those who are immigrants to our country, whether first generation, second generation, beyond. We know that most of us in this country, either ourselves or our ancestors immigrated here, except for our indigenous sisters and brothers. And so I hope that Cameroonians around the country have seen, and I hope the Cameroonians in Minnesota have felt real love and support from their neighbors in this last couple months. Shufai, you referenced our shared faith, which we share with Pam as well. We all go to the same church. And what I've seen is a real love of neighbor that I think is encapsulated in the Cameroonian term that you used, and in the teachings in our church as well, in our faith. So the first thing is know that there are many, many people standing with you. I hope that in the next hour or so we can give some really practical information to folks as well to use. I think we can be really proud of a lot that's happened in our state in terms of laws we've passed and actions that have been taken by the government in our state, but especially just actions taken by ordinary Minnesotans, people stepping up and taking care of their neighbors in a really beautiful, wonderful way. And I want people around the country to know that your neighbors in your communities as well, I think you're going to be looking to, and hopefully they're going to be looking to you as well, to have us all take care of one another in really unprecedented, challenging times.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn to you, Pam. I know you've been very active, very busy. Probably this has been the most busy part of your life, since for the past couple of months here. What do you have for our people who really right now direly need to know their rights, and what legal resources can they leverage to protect themselves?
Yes, in America, so long as you are residing in America, everybody in America, whether documented or undocumented, have rights. And if you don't know that you have these rights, the government or the police or law enforcement can abuse those rights. They can violate them. The first key right is the Fourth Amendment right. You have a right to refuse search and seizures if you are approached by the police or the government. The problem is they will approach you many times. They will not. Most people don't know that you have to ask them that you need to see like a warrant if they need to search you, or if they come to your house, you can ask them that you need to see a warrant. That's the right that you have. And then what we've been seeing going on now is that there are different warrants. There's a warrant that is issued by a magistrate, a judge, or a justice of peace. And there are warrants that are issued by the administrators, like the Border Patrol, immigration officers, and things like that. Most people don't know the differences. The only warrants you need to pay attention to is the warrant that is issued by the judge, the justice of peace, or the magistrate. Those are the valuable warrants. Those that are issued by the administration, USCIS, is not really, we don't have to honor them. So this is a right that you have. If you're approached by either a police officer or together with the Border Patrol and things like that, the first thing you ask them is that, do you have a warrant? So it's a right that you have. Even if you are in your home, even if you are at work, you have to request that warrant. You also have a Fifth Amendment right to request for a lawyer if you are approached by an officer. It's okay to ask them questions. Don't be afraid. Don't panic. Ask them questions. Request to speak to a lawyer. Tell them that you don't want to answer any questions, or you speak to a lawyer. You don't consent to them asking you any questions. It's your right to say that. You can refuse to speak. You can stay silent and say nothing. And it's your right. You have that right as a resident in the US. So many times, people when they see officers, they are afraid. They don't know how to react. They feel that the world is coming to an end. Be calm. Remain calm and just arrange your line of thoughts. Make sure you know who you're speaking to. You have a right to ask them their name. You have a right to ask them to introduce themselves. You have the right to ask them to show you their badge, to make sure that they are who they say they are. Things like that. But most people don't know all this information. When they are approached by these officers, they panic and then they shut down. So you also have a right to videotape or record the incident. You can ask them, can I record this incident? Can I record this conversation? Yes, it's your right. You can record them. So you also have a right to do that. So do not be afraid when you are approached by an officer or a police officer or somebody in government position or somebody of authority. You have a right to ask questions. You have the right to remain calm. You have the right to say, hey, can I speak with a lawyer? I don't have to sign or read any documents. And if they show you a document, you have to read it and make sure that it's the right documents, because it may not be the right document. It may not be the right warrant. It may not even have your name. It may not even have the permission for them to search or to come to the area that they are being present at. So you need to look into these things. If they show you a warrant, you have the right to read it. Make sure that they have the warrant referred to the property that they are in. Make sure that if they are coming to your home, it has your name, is spelled right. Make sure it is you before you answer them. You have a right to say, I don't want to open my door. I don't want to speak to you. You don't have to open your door when they knock on your door. So it's a right you have. So you have to exercise that right. Don't be afraid.
Excellent. That's a laundry list of really protections that the law has given us. And thank you, Pam. I know we'll be coming back to you there. Manny, let me turn to you. You've been on the ground helping to, people enforce this, lead even, I would say, the campaign around this. So how has that been? Can you share what the community has been doing to respond actively to the ICE
Sure.
activities around the area?
Sure. Happy to do that, Shufai, and thank you so much for inviting me. Very honored to be speaking to this group. So Pam has articulated the very important need to know your rights. I'm going to talk about what you do in the likelihood that your rights get violated in the moment. So I'm going to try to prepare you for the occasions when our friends from the Department of Homeland Security choose to ignore constitutional rights. So let's start with a pretty unfortunate thing to think about. But if you are a parent with small children, you probably want to prepare a documented parental authority form in advance that specifies, in the event that you and your spouse are detained, who can take custody of your children and take them to school and take them to doctors and those kind of things while you're in the immigration detention process. I will send you a link to the Minnesota version, but I assume that there are similar ones in other states after this call, so that you can send that to the folks that attended the call. The other thing we've been recommending to people to do in advance is to download the Ready Now app. The Ready Now app is an emergency app that when you click on it, will send a text to family members and ideally an attorney you've identified in advance so that they can weigh in and intervene on your behalf in the event that you're detained in the moment. What we are observing in Minnesota is people are detained, and within 8 to 12 hours, they're transferred to a facility in Texas or New Mexico or Montana. So being prepared in advance is an important thing for you to do. Pam has talked about the fact that DHS agents are not allowed into your home without an initial warrant. What we're observing is they are changing their tactics, in some cases pretending that they are, for example, motorists with car trouble, and they knock on your door and say, hey, can you come look at my car? And then the minute you get out of your house, you are detained. So we are being very blunt with people that you need to take the assumption that while it is incredibly important to know and document your rights, there is a possibility they may not be honored in the moment, and so you need to prepare accordingly as if that happens. Now let's talk about sort of the ecosystem in which you can rely for support. I will be specific to Minnesota because each of the infrastructures are going to differ by location and by level of preparedness. But in Minnesota, we have in real time, in the course of 10 weeks, set up an infrastructure of rapid response and mutual aid networks where people are standing up and helping their neighbors with rides to work or accompaniment to immigration hearings, or in the cases where people are afraid to leave their house to get groceries, bring food to their locations. So there's been an ecosystem that's evolved. The tricky part about all of this is each of those ecosystems is going to differ by locality and by familiarity in your network. So to the extent you can, if you're in a community that hasn't been preparing, start getting trained, start getting knowledge, start building the ecosystem of notifying, communicating, and providing each other with feedback and support. Those are the high level things I wanted to share with you today, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Manny. I know I'll be getting back with you so that you can provide the link and the stuff for me to forward to our participants. Let me turn back to you, Dave. What current or upcoming Minnesota state policies are most vital for immigrant community to understand right now regarding the protection from the federal enforcement? Are there any upcoming?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit complicated in our federal system because we have a federal government that has responsibility for certain kinds of things, and traditionally that includes immigration. And then state governments are responsible for the health and safety of their residents. There's a clause in our U.S. Constitution that makes federal law be supreme over state law. And another challenge in our complicating factor in our state is that there's presently a partisan tie in the House, a very closely divided legislature, which candidly makes it hard to advance policy changes through the legislature as the parties are disagreeing on various things. I think what I'll note is that in Minnesota in particular, and I'm mindful we have many non-Minnesotans listening to this call as well, in a number of states, steps have been taken through the years to really strengthen those states' abilities to provide protection for their residents, such as, for example, limiting data sharing. If there's information and data that's been gathered for certain state purposes that are very essential for the health and safety of the state, of the residents of that state, saying that there are very limited circumstances where that information can be shared. And that's certainly true in Minnesota, I think, and true of a number of other states as well. And also, and I mentioned working as a prosecutor, in many of the communities in our state, saying that local police, it's really important that they be focused on the safety and welfare of residents in their community and focused on solving crimes, and allow federal immigration enforcement to be in the hands of federal immigration authorities. We know that there's been some problems, as Manny alluded to, in those federal authorities enforcing the law. That's going to happen over there. We want to make sure that our state and our local police are in position to investigate crimes that are happening in our community, which means there has to be the cooperation and support of people in the community. I would say, I think one of the most important things happening in Minnesota, and again, this is happening around this country as well, is that state policymakers are, in particular state attorneys general, are taking steps to hold the federal administration accountable. So in our state, Attorney General Keith Ellison has sued the Trump administration many times over actions that the administration has taken that have been outside the law. Keith Ellison says, I don't want to sue the Trump administration. I've got other things I want to do. The reason I'm doing it is because they're violating the law. And that's true of many other states. They've had a lot of success. So I think I'd say policy change is going to be kind of difficult in our state. We've done a lot to strengthen our state's laws in past years. But the biggest thing we can do is to be keeping an eye out for our neighbors and taking care of one another in the way that so many Minnesotans have, and then people around the country as well.
All right. Thank you so much. Folks, sure. Please send in the questions by chat so that we can respond to them as they come in. I'm keeping an eye out to make sure that all the questions that are coming in are getting answered. Pam, what happens if somebody is approached by ICE at home or at work? So what are the 3 most critical legal steps they must take to protect themselves?
If usually, given this scenario that we are in now, it's always good to have your documents in a safe place where you know you can easily reach them. So always put your documents together. Always have an attorney, if you have one, the attorney's number that you can contact, or you can tell the immigration you want to contact them if they give you permission. Have it handy so that in situations like that, you can easily reach it. If ICE knocks on your door, you're at home. You don't have to respond if you don't want to. That's the first step. If in the event you couldn't avoid responding, maybe you didn't know that we are the ones knocking, when they ask them to ID themselves. Once they ID themselves and they say who they are, Sometimes you can ask them for their badge. If you have a keyhole that you can let them produce it, you can read it and see whether it is them or not. And then ask them the next question: do you have a warrant? If they say yes, I want to see the warrant. If they say no, say then if you don't have a warrant, I'm not opening you my door. Refuse to speak to them and say, unless you get a warrant, then you come back and then I can talk to you. So you don't have to open your door if they don't have a warrant, and they cannot break into your door. That's one step. If you are in a public place, let's say they come to your workplace or they meet you on the street, most often if it's a stop, but in your car or something like that, remain calm. If they ask you for your documents, yes, you have to ID yourself. It's a normal procedure where if a police officer or an agent stops you, you can ID yourself. But tell them that, ask them if they have a warrant to search you. Still ask that question, and still ask them questions about why are you being stopped, or why are they asking you these questions. And if you don't feel comfortable, you have the right to also say, I don't want to speak to you. I need to speak to a lawyer. Can I call my lawyer? Things like that. You have a right to say that. And most often you have a right to record the conversation. Tell them that I'm going to record this conversation so that in the event that you will need this, if there's litigation, if your lawyer wants to help you, they can use that to better litigate and defend you in court. Don't be afraid. Don't show them anything if you don't want to. It's up to you if you want to show them your documents. But again, it's good. It's always good to identify yourself when you are stopped on the road. While you are at work, the Border Patrol or ICE agent cannot come into the private location where the employees are working in your workspace, where they can only do so if they have a warrant. And they have to pass through your employer to get to you. They cannot just walk in there. They have to show there's some kind of security measures that they have to pass through to get to where you are working. But if they come to the private place, like in the dining, like the where you guys eat, the lunch rooms, the break rooms, or outside the building, that's public space. Then you have the right to question them. Do you have a warrant? Can I inspect them? And you have to inspect them, make sure it's the right warrant. If it's not the ones issued by the court, the judge, or the justice of peace, then it's not the right warrant. Tell them that I need to see the warrant. I can only obey a warrant that is issued by the court. If they ask for your documents, you can ID themselves, but you can refuse to say anything. You don't identify yourself, just refuse to answer their questions and keep insisting that you want to speak to your lawyer. You don't want to give up information that you don't know is valuable, or you may implicate yourself in the future. So always request to speak to your lawyer. And if you don't have a lawyer, ask them that they should give you an opportunity to dial one or call one, because they always have that access. They can give you that number, those free numbers, toll-free numbers for you to call. So always remain calm, record or try to document in your brain. If you don't have a phone to record, just try to remember, keep the incidents, what unfolds there, because if you have to have proper representation, then it's going to be the facts that you give to your lawyer that is going to help litigate whatever situation you are in. So always try to stay focused, don't panic, and try to memorize what is taking place. If you have somebody by you, you can tell them, hey, record this for me. And, you know, in the event that I need it, I will get it from you. So always be prepared. Do not work without your documents. Always have your legal documents. Even if you've just filed for some kind of relief and it has not been approved yet, you still have the receipts, because the immigration will always give you receipts. Keep them with you. Always keep your documents with you, so that in the event that you are stopped, you can use them. Most often, if you have family members, like they say, if you have kids, always be prepared. Make sure you have a designated individual where in the event that you are not around, that person is going to take responsibility, because they can just pick you up and take you. Nobody knows where you are. Like they always take people out of state. They don't keep them in Minnesota, especially in Minnesota. They always take them to Texas and off places. So always be prepared. Have a plan in place in your home when things happen, when you are absent. Have your kids, make your kids know who to call, who to contact in an event that things happen. And they are, you know, because it's always very fast. You never expect them to show up, but they show up on unexpectedly. So always be prepared.
Excellent. Thank you, Pam. Manny, listening to Pam talk about this, it can be very, very scary, and then one begin to wonder, um, um, can immigrants actually get involved in the community action? So my question to you is, what are the do's and don'ts for immigrants looking to get involved in community response? Should they actually be getting involved in community response, given that they are not being really chased, right? I'm looking for the right word, right? They anybody who
Oh,
has an accent, who has
yes,
who is black,
yes,
right? Yeah,
yes, yes. So Shifa, you can look at me and you can go, I am probably the kind of person that DHS and ICE would want to pick
yeah,
up and ask, show us your papers, right?
yes.
So I've made a deliberate choice to not be on the constitutional observer rapid response side of the house,
Mhm.
but to be helping people on the mutual aid side of the house.
Okay.
So helping organize food deliveries and pickups. Where immigrant communities can be actively engaged is in helping validate, vet, and be facilitators between folks who don't know your community but want to help and your community. In other words, if you are willing to be that conduit to people who want to help but don't know the community, and you can validate these are people to be trusted. So if they show up your house with groceries, they're good. That's a good space, I think, for immigrant communities to be engaged in.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can, just as Manny was talking, I wondered if people outside Minnesota may not have understood some of when he was talking about those different roles, that folks have not paid attention so much. That there are people who are, as he described, constitutionally observing, and it's really just saying people documenting what's happening in their communities. And for those who haven't been in Minnesota, that there's been quite an effort. You know, the videos that you've seen of the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy were because people in the area had their phones out, just documenting what's happening. We have a right to be just recording what's happening around us, and that's what people are doing. And yet, people doing that have sometimes been targeted for harassment, just having their phones out. And it may be something that, as Manny said, might be right for some people, might not be such a good role for others. And there are some people who are providing, as he said, mutual aid, making sure that folks have food, the kids are being, we make sure the kid can get a ride to school, that sort of thing, and describing those as maybe different roles that somebody might want to play, just because unfortunately the targeting that's happening from the federal government. Manny, I don't know if there's something you want to add. Shufi, if you mind my saying that, I just want to make sure to explain for those not in our state.
No. That's a good context, Dave. The other thing I would observe is that constitutional observers originally started to assist people like Pam in immigration and litigation. So, for example, in the event that an immigrant was being detained, one of the roles of the observer was to ask the person being detained, who's your name? Do you have a lawyer? So that they had a record that they could then get to someone who could help that person get a habeas proceeding, for example, or otherwise get a bond hearing. And anyway, in any event, to be sure that they didn't somehow disappear into the litigation process. That has evolved over time to not continue to do that, but also to provide a record of any potential constitutional violations, so that folks like our Attorney General or the ACLU can then initiate litigation with respect to the violation of constitutional rights. Because as Pam notes, constitutional rights apply to anyone in this country, irrespective of your status as a citizen. We all have due process rights. We all have the right to the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, First Amendment, but they're not necessarily honored in this moment.
That is great. It's crazy, right? So, I mean, there's no other word for it.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing, you guys correctly, and Pam, you really stressed on the idea of a lawyer. So for those who are tuned in and they are on the call, I think one thing, if you were to do one thing, is that you should really have a lawyer with a memorized number. I mean, aside from making sure you have your papers on you all the time, have a lawyer, because even when you have the papers, they can still pick you up. Like you say, Manny, some of these rights are not being respected. is not because we've had situations in which somebody is a citizen and they've suddenly been shipped out of the country, and now the problem is how do they get back? So have the papers and make sure you at least have a number of a lawyer, or have a lawyer that you can get back to. Would that be a good submission?
Absolutely. It's as much of your preparation and planning as you can do to be ready in the space. One other thing that I wanted to add, I know we talked about the Attorney General and his guidance and involvement in this space. He has also put out guidance to all of us to manage our digital security and presence, because one of the things he notes, and I will send you that guidance, Shufai, so you can send it to people, is that DHS is using our digital information that they can obtain from data brokers, the same folks that do those targeted ads to you in Facebook and Instagram. They're using that to develop information and profiles and dossiers on people in order to aid them with their enforcement efforts. That is commercially available information that you are inadvertently creating as you go through life. He is giving you an opportunity to be able to clean up your profile. There's a Minnesota law that allows you to clarify and limit the amount of data that is available about you. There might be similar ones. If you're not from Minnesota, you should look into, but I will share you that guidance because that's a good general digital hygiene measure that all of us should be taking anyway.
Cool. Thank you.
Shufai, back to the note about folks having an attorney, just a reminder of the app that Manny had mentioned earlier. It's called Ready Now. It's all one word with a capital N, Ready Now, which is just an app you can install. It's free. And then if you hit a button, it'll send a note automatically to the lawyer that you've set up. So if you're in a rush, you could just hit the button and your lawyer would then be alerted. It also just helps remind you to make sure that you have someone who's ready to receive that message. So that's maybe a nice connection with the point you just made.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be sharing that to everybody who's joined this call, the link for them to download, and not just download, complete the profile so that the app itself can perform the function for which it is intended. So thank you so much there for the reminder. The question that is coming in is, what alternatives do we as immigrants have when these officers are not respecting the law? And it's to all of you.
It all depends on, like we say, document. This is one of the things that when they are not respecting the law and they are violating your rights, these are things that if you have the documentation, if you have the videos, if you have somebody by your side who is a witness and who can make notes of the things they did or what they didn't do, then you have a place in court where you can adjudicate and win against them, because that's the best route to go. Because if they violate your rights, they pick you up and they take you to Texas. If you have all this record of the evidence that were recorded, if you have somebody who witnessed it, we can tell the lawyer what actually happened. These are the facts that they are used to put in if they do a bond, if they do habeas corpus or whatever means they try to get you out of jail. These are the facts that are needed in order to succeed in these cases. So it is very important that this information is available.
Cool.
I cannot echo Pam enough. Have documentation. If you drive for a living or if you're in your car a lot, get a dash cam that records and has the information so that any transactions demonstrate what actually happened. There's unfortunately a pattern where DHS will claim that you hit their car and that therefore gave them an excuse to detain you. And then if there's video, the video shows that no such thing happened. The other part about video and documentation is that after the fact, it allows you to build a case for civil rights violations and civil rights cases. So those are the kind of things you're going to need both to help you with your immigration case, but for any potential civil rights cases.
Fantastic. Anything to add on that, Dave?
No, I think that's all good. And unfortunately, I think maybe I'll just say that this is focused, of course, on oneself, and we have people on the Zoom listening to this, thinking about their own situation, their families as well. They should, but this is another reason to be out engaging with your neighbors, being in touch with one another, because it may well be important to note when someone else, for example, is being detained, that you're recording what's going on. It's maybe a way for us to connect with one another. I mean, coming out of the pandemic, in many ways, we've really become separated. This is something that I think knits community together, because you may well have to document something to help someone else.
And that takes me actually to the next question, which is, are there maybe specific ways by which we can do what you're just doing, saying, like supporting one another during an enforcement action without putting, especially for those of us like Megan, putting ourselves in some kind of risk or legal jeopardy, right? Because we want to be able to help, right? But, do what you just said. Are there any ideas?
So there are some best practices if you're going to be in a position of being a witness and a constitutional observer. One, try to do it from a safe distance. Do not be use the zoom on your camera instead of like trying to get physically close. Try to do it from your residence, your private space, a location where it is impossible for them to argue you were somehow obstructing the enforcement proceeding, so that you are simply there to record. We also suggest that you do so and make sure that your information is uploaded to places that can use it. And by places that can use it, in Minnesota, and being specific to Minnesota, the ACLU of Minnesota and the Attorney General of Minnesota are collecting witness video and data for their litigation purposes. So that is a place to potentially consider sending your video, in addition to the lawyer for the person being detained, because the person being detained definitely needs the evidence you're creating in order to be able to defend themselves.
Fantastic.
I will also add that if you are witnessing or you are with a family member and they are being approached or being violated, do not get into confrontation with the officers. Their role is to record and keep the facts straight. Don't get into any confrontation with them, or else you can be arrested alongside with them and taken in, and they will say that you're obstructing due process or justice, or you are disturbing the process. You may be arrested for assaulting the officers or things like that. So just stay calm, stay focused, and just record and keep the facts. Don't get involved. Don't get in arguments with them. Don't do anything to prevent it.
Okay. Folks, please send in questions. We still have some time here before we think about wrapping up. And as you're thinking about sending in a question, there is one here that has to do with the digital hygiene that you mentioned. Both Manny, I think, and Dave talked about that. With nearly everyone having some level of presence online, what are some basic do's and don'ts for everyday people to be aware of in the meantime?
So let's start with the device in everyone's hand, your phone. One of the first pieces of basic advice they recommend is to take off facial ID or any biometric locking and instead substitute an alphanumeric code. Why? Because they do not need a judicial warrant to hold a phone up to your face, but they do need a warrant to compel you to provide your passcode. So that's a very simple thing to do, but that is something you should do. Item number 2, sort of do's and don'ts for digital hygiene. All of the location thing on your phone, do you really need to have every single app know where you are at every single point in the day? Maybe not. It might be convenient to get that great ad from Chick-fil-A, but maybe you don't really need to give all of the people trying to sell you stuff information about your whereabouts, right? Why? Because they use your whereabouts even if you're not the target. And let's assume you're in mutual aid, for example, right? And you're feeding people who are staying and sheltering at home. They'll use your location data to figure out where you're going. And now you have put a family that's vulnerable at risk. So really minimize the amount of times you use your phone for location data. And then the last thing I would recommend is like look at your social media footprint and really think about how much detail you want to be sharing. Because even though your social media is supposed to be for your friends and family, you never know who else is looking over their shoulders.
And with regards to the social media, that's true. I've had that experience. I had a litigation where the officer, the DHS counsel brought the Facebook page of my clients in trial. So everything was out there. They brought it there and it was out there. So they can easily get into your Facebook page. You have to be careful, especially if you have documentation issues. Please limit what you put on Facebook. Even getting out of those apps or those social media pages, you will stay away from them because you are just exposing yourself to eyes. Anytime they want to get you, they can easily get you, and they can take information from your postings and use against you during your case. So be careful.
Wow. The what you got me at the issue, the one of just holding the phone to your face. That blew me away. Like, holy cow. Right? They take your phone and then hold to your face. You have nothing you can do about that. That was that is crazy. Folks, are there any other questions? And before we wrap up here, and I'm watching the chat function here. The state government, I mean, how can the state government, right, our own state here in Minnesota, ensure that our local resources, the stuff that we are paying, we pay a lot of taxes for, right, are not being diverted into federal immigration enforcement?
Well, our state, and again, I think this is informative for states around the country. Our state has had there's been a massive negative impact on our state's economy and budget because of what's happened in the last couple months. I think the city of Minneapolis alone calculated a $200 million loss as a result of what's been happening. So one thing I'll say to our friends around the country, if and as there's federal surges coming to your communities, to make sure that your elected officials and leaders understand the really negative impact that is likely to have on your communities. What our local leaders can do and have been trying to do, again, is to have local law enforcement, local resources focused on health and safety and the needs of the community. In general, I think we've done pretty well in that. But there's been a big imposition in cost. I know in Minneapolis, they've had tons of overtime they've been paying for police officers and others just to deal with the results of what's been happening. Again, I don't know if folks have caught this, but the Minneapolis police chief described ICE agents detaining people from cars, yanking them out of the car, and then not stopping the car. And the car continues going with nobody in it, smashes into something, and then they just leave the scene. And then the local police have to then clean it up and deal with it. So there's been major impact there. There's a limit to sort of what we can pass at a state level, what more laws we can pass. But in general, we can say is, look, our state resources have to be focused on health and safety in our state. I think that can and should be true in other states as well. And we need to recognize that when there are federal agents doing what they did in the last couple of months in Minnesota, there's a major negative impact on state resources. I'll say paralleling the major negative impact on a lot of other things that the Trump administration has been doing, unfortunately.
Wow. Thank you. I am these are the questions that have come in. I'm going to give all of you some time to wrap up and share any other insight takeaways that folks that have joined in. And I want to again take a moment to thank everybody who has joined in and stayed on. People did not drop off. They came in and they've been very, very focused on this. No one has left. So, which means they are following up very keenly. And for every member, somebody that you see on the phone or see on here, they are representing a crowd. Okay. Yeah. So it's not about the number. It is really the families that are behind everyone who is joining. And for safety reasons, some people are scared even of joining these this virtual forum. So so for those who are here, and I know you are representing a lot of families, thank you for joining and staying on. So let me let's do a round robin here. Beginning with you, Pam. You know, some takeaways before we wrap up here.
The takeaway I have here for everybody is that if you are here, you don't have any legal status, or your legal status is still not finalized, you don't have an attorney representing you, it's advisable, very, very advisable that you get one, because things are very unpredictable. You know, you need an attorney. There's no way you can navigate the immigration system on your own. You need an attorney to help you through this. And even if you don't have funds, there are non-profit organizations that help people. They will guide you towards the steps. Even if the baby steps, they may help you to do a bond hearing, they may help you to do a habeas corpus, a petition, things like that. They can do it for free for you, and then you can pick up the pieces later on. But it is always advisable, get a lawyer ready, a lawyer that you can talk to, a lawyer that you can call and consult with, a lawyer that you can rely on. Always, at this point in time, it is imperative we all have to have somebody that we can consult, especially if you don't have legal status here, if your documentation is pending, if you have, even if you commit a crime, your green card is being taken away, or if you have issues, please, it's advisable, retain a lawyer, have a lawyer available, or have a number, know one that you can call that can guide you towards the steps. It is very, very important.
Thank you, Pam. And I'm going to be sharing the app so that people can get the profile, and so that the press of a button, the notification will go out. But to Pam's point, it may be that you don't even know, your phone is not on you, or for whatever reason, knowing a number is still critically important. And Dave, some takeaways, last thoughts before we wrap up.
Well, I just want to note, as I said earlier, as I think I alluded to earlier, you know, ours is a country that has been strengthened so much by immigrants. We have a very complicated immigration system, and it's one that there's been moves towards immigration reform that have gotten blocked at various points. Unfortunately, sometimes by the very people who are now very elected officials who are pushing the surge. So it's a complicated system. We're lucky to have somebody like Pam, who's an expert in the legalities of it, but it's very complicated for people to deal with. It's made so much worse when you have administration that's not honoring the laws that are in fact in place regarding it. So this is a very difficult time. I just want folks to know that you have so many neighbors and friends who are supportive of you, who are supportive of first honoring immigration laws that exist, of comprehensive immigration reform, and are very angry at how what's happening with their system right now, and wanting to be supportive. And hopefully people around the country received a lot of heart and inspiration from what has happened in Minnesota the last couple of months. I know that I did. And so for all the people watching this, please know that you have many friends and neighbors who care a lot about you and recognize the contributions you make to our country. And I know that we will get past this particular moment and get back on track to having the wonderful America that so many people come to and have made strong, and to make it even stronger. And so that's the goal of all of us, is an even stronger and more free country. So grateful to be with you.
Excellent. And Manny, you are out there living it. So thoughts before we go?
I want to echo what Dave said. There are people you do not know that have your back. You just need to get to know them, ideally, before you need to know them. There are people in your community who are like wanting to be in relationship with you, despite, especially in Minnesota, the fact that we might be a little reticent about talking to you. I think we're getting past that. We're realizing we are part of the same community and fabric, and this is a good time, if you haven't done this, to get to know your neighbors. So that would be what I would hope that people have as a takeaway.
Excellent. Thank you all. I have brought our president and CEO back to the spotlight here so that he can say a few words before the close. So President Ray.
Yeah, wow, Shufai. Wow, wow. I can't, where we come from, you know, having to give this hands is reserved for the king, right? And for the most outstanding. And I want to take my two hands on behalf of my community and do that for you guys. Really, really wonderful presentation and sharing of information. And this is a reason, right, Dave? I will call on our people to be engaged in the community where we live. This is our home. You know, some may not want us to be here, but this is where we are. This is our home. And you know what? Even if you cannot do anything, get out there. It may be just one time in 365 days. It may be two times within 365 days. When you have an opportunity to go out there and cast that single vote, go and cast the vote. You can take off a day to go cast that vote. It is that important. And when you have people like Dave who speak to our hearts, who speak to us from within our own, corners, then you know someone is there who speaks for you. This is not specifically to Dave, but wherever you are, be engaged in whatever community you live in, because that's the only way things are going to change is votes. If you don't vote, then you get what is served to you. And don't say that you don't have the time. I want to thank you guys so much. And Manny, yeah, the hygiene is something that word sticks in my mind for the rest of my life, right? We just threw out these things out there easily. We don't know. We've never thought that we would come back to haunt us, and here we are. So if we can, sometimes I just watched. Well, it was this week, right? The CEO of Facebook, about this digital addiction. They have made us understand that you have to have that location. You have to have that location because it will serve you the best, whatever Chick-fil-A that you have, right? But you don't need that. And therefore, you always feel like I'm missing something if I do not choose this location, direction into my phone. So these are things that we should really take very, very important consideration before we make those very little decisions that can make a difference in our lives, right? So I want to appreciate everything that you've done. And Pam, you are here with us. We have your phone. We would like everybody to have your phone. And the services that you and your law firm provides to our community is something that forever will remain very, very grateful for everything that you guys do. So keep it up. It takes all of us to make this a beautiful wall for the time that we'll be here, right? So thank you guys very much. And I want to thank all the members and all the chapters that are represented here. Take the message. It's recorded. These are things that you can spend some time, listen to it. You will pick your own specific message that is very relevant to your particular situation, and that makes a difference in your life. So thank you guys so very much. In Minnesota, I would like to have a drink, Dave, Manny, right? Whenever I show up to Shufai's residence, I will need to check it out. Thank you so very much.
All right, thank you, folks. And it's on that note that we say we close the shop here. For everybody who's on the call, thank you. Please share the word. I'm going to be sharing the recording to all of you. Please note that the purpose of this town hall is to provide you with the resources you need to be safe with you and your family. That's the entire purpose of this, to help you navigate these challenging times. BFU-USA is under doing that because we believe that we are each other's keeper. That is the sole purpose of this particular engagement that we are having here. So thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Manny. Thank you, Pam, and to you, Ray, as well. Thank you for jumping in and introducing and closing things out. So have a great rest of your day, folks. Thank you. And it's goodbye from BFU-USA. Bye-bye.
Thank
you,
you.
Shufai. Thank you all.